All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insanely 13, as we are preparing to get underway here for tonight's Porsche Cup race here at the Sunset Peninsula Roval. This is a fictional road course built in a fictional oval in this game. The Sunset Peninsula oval and road course date back to Forza Motorsport 1, so it is a true classic in this game and the overall franchise. But today we are going to be watching some Porsche Cup racing here. Tomorrow the GT3s will be here as well. One interesting rule change of note though, we talked about maybe this happening last week, but didn't happen last week obviously, but it is coming into effect this week. All of the Porsche Cup races have been very slightly shortened, and all of the GT3 Pro races have been very slightly lengthened. The big thing that this creates is a situation where the Porsche Cup events are not going to be a automatic showcase of what the strategy plays are going to be in the GT3 races. The slight difference in links between the two mean that you will be seeing a lot more differences in how both events play out, even if they go green flag, flag to flag. Real quickly, looking at the drivers in today's event here, Homeminder is going to be running today, as will Manuel Pedro, who has been a big mainstay in the GT3 races on Saturdays. Dex Twilight is coming over, as is Les Railgun. Savage 647 is back, and is Car Matthews. Matthews looked like he could have had some good laps in, but just could not keep the car on track. Mays showed up. He's going to be qualifying. He actually did qualifying today, so he's going to be qualifying the top half of the grid, so doesn't have to pass as many drivers early on to try and lead laps. Again, Mays is on the trend of he has led at least one lap in 8 straight events this summer in X League between Porsche Cup and GT3 Pro. We'd love to make that 9 as we prepare to load onto the circuit here, and we'll give you a quick look, if we can, through the entire grid. Alright, here we are. As they're loading onto the grid, another thing that was changed from last week to this week is that there's been a little bit of a redo on how the grid is laid out. It used to be that the pace car would take grid spot number 1. There has been a change in that based off of a little bit of concerns of that messing up the telemetry in the game. It does seem like the alterations has helped significantly, so we do want to say thank you very much to the X League personnel. We're going to take a Twitch mandated ad break. When we come back, we'll run through the field real quickly here at Sunset. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sunset. Just as the field is starting to double up as they're going through the final corners, Road 1 will be made up of Indiel Violet and Dex Twilight. Road 2 will have It's Maze and Les Railgun. Row 3 will have Breezy Rain and Les Aguera. Row 4 will have Tempered Chip and Wicked Amp. Row 5 will have Car Matthew and Savage. Row 6 will have TCPP Photo and Arrow 592. RX Dog is Pain, and then Manuel Pedro and Holman will round out the rear of the grid as RXN Dog has to come into the pits at the start of this race. So only 13 of our 14 stars will take the green flag here, and we are underway. Who is going to get the better run through turns 1 and 2? On the inside is NDL Violet, and that green 120 machine holds the inside without too much issue. They're trying to get 3 wide behind them, but can't quite work out the logistics. Maze on the inside of Dex Twilight can't hold it. In fact, that has Les Railgun now on his outsides. That green 91 slides a bit wide and really spreads out the field farther back. But Violet and Twilight open up a bit of a gap. Now, mind you, I looked at the fuel loads real quickly here. Violet, Twilight, Railgun, Aguera, all these people are relatively similar on their fuel load. Aguera, I believe it's Aguera who actually has a lot more fuel than everyone else. And then Car Matthew in 10th has a little less fuel than most of the other drivers here. I will say that Maze has slightly more than most of the drivers ahead, but not quite a full tank in his car. So keep an eye on him, likely working on an alternate strat. But it is NDL Violet and Dex Twilight already starting to scoot away from the rest of the field. They already have about a 6/10 to 9/10 second lead over Maze after just the first few corners. Now to get into the infield back straightaway, this is a potential overtaking zone, but if you can't make the overtake stick before the braking zone, you're going to be sliding wide and be compromised on the most important straightaway on the circuit. Out of the final corner, well, the final infield road course corner, and then through Speedway Turn 2 and Speedway Turn 1, side by side, Violet on the outside, Dex Twilight on the inside, neck and neck between the two of them. Railgun has gotten alongside Maze and has cleared Maze farther back. And on the inside, Dex Twilight gets the nose ahead of Violet, but using the side draft, Violet pulls back alongside at the line. Violet gets the car all the way back ahead of Twilight. Violet leads lap 1, but just barely. And he'll lead as they go into the braking zone of turn 2. Twilight tries to look to the inside, can't make anything of it this time by. Now they go back into these really difficult sections where you have to bounce over these big curbs. It almost feels like a street circuit here in the infield at Sunset Peninsula. That 120 cuts down in front of the 75, and that is Les Railgun, who has now caught the top 2. So in our GT3 races, when these 3 drivers show up, normally they all get spread out very early on, but that is not the case right now. Right now, it is still a hot fight among the top 3. Violet, Twilight, and Railgun all round top of each other. Maze has slipped back to 4th. Aguera has moved up to 5th. Arrow to 6th. Breezy Rain in 7th. Manuel Pedro to 8th. Car Matthew 9th. Savage has slipped back to 10th right now. And then Homender and RX and Indog have lost touch with the rest of the field at the moment. Again, no attempt by Dex Twilight to make a move at the end of the infield back straightaway. He believes that it is safer and more efficient to just go for the move using the draft through the longest straight on the circuit, which goes from Speedway Turn 2 through Speedway Turn 1 down the front straightaway. Now, Turn 1 is flat, but it's single lane, so you don't really want to be side by side in Turn 1 if you can help it. Violet outside, Dex Twilight inside. Again, Violet leads at the line. Twilight on the inside, though. Maybe he'll set up for a dive coming into the corner. He does not set up for a dive going into the corner. He does pull a little bit closer in the apex, but not really enough to get alongside. Les Railgun hangs out in 3rd, but not really in a position to do anything to this duo. As they go by the media center here, this is another optional overtaking zone. It's a not quite hairpin corner here that goes hard to the left. You can see the 75 gets to the inside, pulls the front tires alongside Violet's rear tires, but could not get the traction down because of how tight that round is. So Violet was able to be a lot smoother on the throttle and pull back in the lead. And now we see Twilight tries to look to the outside, then turns that into a crossover here. But you get 3 right-hand corners in a row, followed by 1 quick left, and then you're onto the infield back straightaway again. And now this time you have to wonder, does Twilight think, okay, I'll just lock down and go for the move here? No, he's still not willing to go for the move here. He still seems to think that the best option is to go for the move on the front straightaway, and all the while, Les Railgun follows behind, but doesn't seem to be able to do anything to this duo. He just kind of hangs out in their draft, watching, but not really in a position to do anything. They have pulled a significant gap on Les Aguera and Arrow. Maze has slipped back to 6th place. There you are, side by side as it comes to the line this time. Yes, barely. Violet leads over Twilight again, but Twilight gets the advantage in turn 1. Violet goes wide, puts tires on the outside curb. He's really compromised himself here in turn 2. Now through turn 3, they're still side by side, but it is Violet who has the inside line. That is Twilight who had the inside line, and Twilight finally makes the overtake on Violet's stick. So Twilight finally makes it stick on Violet as they were side by side, compromising each other through turn 1. And through turn 2, that's all that mattered. Agera and Arrow getting really aggressive into it, and Arrow gets forced off. Agera gets forced off line there by Arrow, and Maze is going to follow through. So Maze goes back up into the 4th position, just barely ahead of Arrow. He hits the outside wall there, though, and around the outside, Arrow tries to make something happen, but now he gets tucked from behind by Agera, who's not very happy with the shove there. So Maze holds on to 4th, but while these guys are all fighting, the top 3 continue to scoot away from the rest of the field. So it is Twilight, Violet, Railgun at the head of the grid now. Well, it looks like Twilight's opening up a small gap on Violet already. Now, the draft's going to be strong enough here that Violet should be able to use the draft and close right back in on Twilight without too much issue here. There's no engine damage or anything like that, so the draft should be fantastic in letting him close the gap back down. And yet, it does not seem to be happening. Violet is actually losing ground to Twilight in a straight line, even with the draft. He finally closes down a little bit in turn 1 by virtue of taking a tighter line, but that gap did not close at all in a straight line. Twilight gets a little high-centered on the inside curb there. Well, Violet gets high-centered on the inside curb. Twilight, no problem. Twilight seems to be so much smoother going over the curbs right now. Railgun continues to hang out in 3rd, but has not really tried and put any pressure on this top 3 right now. I look at Dex Twilight. I look at his fuel and tire wear. 32% wear on the tires. On Violet, who is ranked 2nd right now, 23%. And then Les Railgun, who is 3rd in this line, he is at 33%. So Violet is in position to go much farther on tire life. It looks like he is on a harder compound tire. So for Violet to have held Twilight off as long as he did on one of his older tires is honestly pretty impressive. Farther back, Arrow has moved into 4th, but it is side by side between Agera and Breezy Rain. Matthews has gotten by. Maze has now slipped back to the 8th position. So Maze's string of leading laps in these events may have come to an end as he is hemorrhaging time at this stage of the race. And he is on a strategy similar to Indiel Violet, so Violet has a massive track position advantage over him. I think Maze's string of leading at least one lap in every event is basically going to come to an end tonight. Les Railgun has moved his way by Indiel Violet. Violet looks to the outside in turn 2. Very suboptimal line. It will give him a respectable exit, but the thing is, the straight that comes afterwards is not long enough or fast enough for that better exit to really give him any draft advantage or anything. And all of a sudden, Violet's in ghost mode. Violet is in ghost mode and is starting to slow as they come into the braking zone. RX and N-Dog jumping back into the pits for the 2nd time. The first one was coming to the green flag, and now he's making his 2nd stop already. Violet out of ghost mode and rolling once again. Not really sure what's happened there to warrant that. But all the while, Dex Twilight is opening up a significant gap on the rest of the grid now. So Breezy Rain has now moved into the 4th spot. 5th is Arrow, then 6th is Agera, 7th is Manuel, 8th is Matthew, 9th is Photo. Maze has slipped back to the 10th position. So despite actually showing up in qualifying, Maze, who has been the big talk of the Porsche Cup Series, plummeting backwards. Breezy Rain trying to hold Arrow behind him right now, but Arrow is going to have a fantastic run in the draft as they come down the front straightaway. So Breezy Rain goes to the outside line and Arrow goes to the inside, but the inside line is such a faster way around. Arrow's going to have the move complete almost, but now the side draft kicks in and Breezy on the outside, Arrow on the inside, neck and neck, side by side between these two as they come across the line. Breezy still holds 4th position. Almost bumper to bumper. There may have been a slight bit of paint swapping there between the two of them, but Breezy will hold station through turn 2. He runs quite a bit wide, but the thing is, Arrow's being pressured by Agera, who I think is still angry about what happened earlier. Big hiccup over the curbs there. You can feel when you are on board. Just by viewing it, you can kind of get an idea what it feels like. And there's the lunge from Arrow. Arrow lunges down to the inside of the 4, ends up sliding wide. He's got the car ahead, and Breezy was struggling to get the tires back down into the infield drag strip section. Big slide by both of them! Both of them have a big slide! That's Agara! Agara gets by! One of them looks to the inside, and he's by! And Manuel Pedro's by as well, and all of a sudden it's chaos! As Pedro and Agara, side by side, they run each other wide! Breezy goes up in the 5th! Agara's into the dirt! Manuel Pedro is up into the 4th spot now! Manuel Pedro to 4th position. Car Matthew up to 5th now. Breezy has slipped back to 6th. And it's not over yet. That was TCPP Photo in the 43 who just went off at the end of the infield back straightaway. All the while, Twilight and Railgun have pulled a gap on NDL Violet, and Twilight is running into the distance now, and Railgun is trying to follow suit. But this is the interesting fight right now. This fight going on for 4th. Pedro and Matthews, and then there's that bigger cars farther back. Matthew on the outside, Pedro on the inside through turn number 1. Just a little, they came so close to making contact, but I think they got the but they make big contact in turn number 2. And Matthews goes deep, he goes wide on exit. Pedro tries to cross him over. He gets on the curbs, sliding sideways. Pedro holds 4th for now. Matthews is going to lose ground, and all of a sudden Breezy Rain is back into the fray. Sliding wide is Breezy Rain farther back there trying to make something happen, but it just doesn't seem like it's working right now. He had track position, but now these faster drivers, the drivers we routinely see at the front of the grid, it's all going away, and Les Aguirre has pulled out of the event. We're going to try and reach out to him, but he got knocked around big time by several drivers. I would not be surprised if that was a rage quit with how much he was being knocked around out there. But now it is Pedro, Car Matthew, and Breezy Rain all on top of each other for 4th, 5th, and 6th position. While this has happened, they have fallen 13 seconds out of our top 3 right now. Going down the infield back straightaway again. Car Matthew not close enough to make a move on Manuel Pedro, but he will be close enough to maybe get a good draft and try and make a move on him in turn 1. He tried making that happen last time. He's got a great line coming onto the Speedway Oval section. He's going to go the long way around, go wide, then cut down to get a run. He gets the side draft off from that white number 91. Matthew on the outside, Pedro on the outside. Side by side, neck and neck, Arrow, Photo, pinning further back as it come down to the line for 4th position. This time, it will be Car Matthew by about 2/3 of the car length ahead of Pedro. But Pedro has the inside line turn 1. Matthew has to back out of it. Pedro back into the 4th spot as they go into turn number 2. But he breaks late and misses the braking zone. The gap between the two closes right back up. Breezy also got there, but I think Breezy is wearing out the best of his tires. He lost ground to the wall in the process. And now they go right by the media center all over again here. All right, coming up to the infield drag strip section once again. It's still Manuel Pedro and Car Matthew. Big twist there by Car Matthew as they came into the infield drag strip section, and that brings Breezy Rain right up on the Matthews. Great news for Pedro. Pedro might be able to open a gap as they come to these switchbacks here, and using that gap, he might be able to pull away a bit and leave this group in the dust. Matthew might not be close enough to get a draft on Pedro when they come onto the oval section again. No big attempt by Breezy at the move, but he is still harassing, still stalking Car Matthew. And that is Maze just a little bit behind this group. So he's found some of his rhythm back, it seems. And no, Matthews is close enough to get a draft on Pedro. But what's this? He's going to come into the pits. Car Matthews is going to commit to the pit at the end of the 10th racing lap. And one of our leaders, how much longer are they going to stay out? I look at our leader, Dex Twilight, right now. He has got 63% wear on that left front tire. That tire is not feeling very good. I look at Les Railgun, who runs in 2nd position right now. 63% on that left front tire as well. I look at NDL Violet, who's a little bit farther back. We think he is on medium compound tires. He's only at 43% wear. He can go for quite a bit longer, but he doesn't have a lot of fuel left in the car. Then, Manuel Pedro, who is now in 4th position. He's at 44%, so he is on the medium compound tire as well. Breezy Rain, who runs in 5th, he is at 43%, so another medium compound runner. And then you have Maze here in 6th. We believe he is also running the mediums with only 42% wear on his tires right now. So Twilight and Railgun likely to pit at the end of this lap, but we don't know when these drivers will pit. But if you can go about 10 laps on the soft tire, then in theory, the medium should be able to take you about 15 laps. This would make this race a very easy two-stop, medium, 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 if you're just not ever going to really burn up the medium tires into the heavy wear mark. But if there's some yellow, or if you really feel like the softs are ideal for you, you might try to extend the medium tires out to get some laps on the softs going. Dex Twilight pitting this lap, he will be joined by Les Railgun. So NDL Violet will inherit the race lead now. But again, the big question is, we don't know how much fuel Violet has and how long he'll be able to stay out. Not because of tires, because of fuel. He's at 13.7% in the fuel tank right now. Just for comparison, Manuel Pedro, who's leading this glut of cars a little bit farther back, he is at 37%. He has plenty more fuel. As Pedro, Maze, and Breezy Rain all on top of each other. Maze looking to the outside. Pedro trying to defend the inside, side by side, neck and neck. Maze is starting to come back into it. Goes a little bit wide, coming out of turn number 1. Breezy look to the inside back to pull out the last possible second. No change between these three for what is now second, third, and fourth position, as NDL Violet has now inherited the race lead. NDL Violet now leads. Savage is also pitted at this stage of the race as well. These are all drivers who are on medium compound tires, trying to go long. Pedro sliding wide as they come out of that infield, not quite hairpin. And that is Maze to the inside of Pedro. Side by side between these two. Bit of a slide by Mazer, who's really trying to arrest the speed of the car. But he still stays right behind Pedro. Breezy Rain is still there as well. Now onto the infield back straightaway. Not an ideal place to make overtaking zone, but we've seen Maze, at least on 2 separate occasions, try to make moves through here. But he's not going to go for it this time. Seems to be content in lane. Pedro hold it for now. Pedro has a relatively solid run coming into the oval. Breezy Rain, big slide. Maze had a good balance between the two of them. He's going to have the inside line. Pedro looks like he's going to be on the outside line. As they come down to it, Maze is going to just about complete the overtake, but now the side draft comes into play. Pedro on the outside, Maze on the inside, neck and neck at the line. Pedro still has the nose ahead for second position. Maze on the inside makes contact, and he's hard into the wall! Maze is hard into the wall! Gigantic damage, and he may have hit Breezy Rain and damaged him as well! But Maze, the car is absolutely destroyed! The engine still works, but the steering is compromised, the aerodynamics, the brakes, the springs, everything is compromised! And what a Breezy Rain, who's all of a sudden gone up into second position! Did he take any damage? He's not taking damage! He's still good! What about Pedro? He has suddenly lost a huge chunk of time! There's no sign of damage to Pedro, but Breezy Rain has muscled his way by Manuel Pedro, and Maze! His run of leading at least 1 lap in every single race is likely going to be over with that! Pedro seems to be struggling with the control of the Porsche now, as the tires have massively burned up, it seems. And Breezy Rain has now gotten in the second spot. Homender also in the pit lane right now. No sign that we're going to have a yellow flag for Maze's accident, so Maze might end up being trapped a lap down here after that has all played out, and Breezy Rain all of a sudden goes up into second position. Breezy, who came home second in the Porsche Championship last season, really putting on a decent run right now, but it is nothing compared to what NDL Violet is going to be trying to do here. And all the while, Dex Twilight and Les Railgun are turning laps in clean air. They do not have to worry about being held up by traffic at all. Breezy Rain pitting now at the end of lap 14, so he has only gone 13 racing laps on these tires and got them to 54% wear. Surely you should be able to go farther. I look at NDL Violet, who is your leader. Again, the curiosity is not going to be what is his tires going to look like. It's going to be how much longer he can go on the fuel. He's at 55% now and still turning off good laps. Manuel Pedro is back here in second position, way behind Violet, but he's got enough fuel to go an extra lap or two if he so chooses. But again, if this is a 43-lap affair, you cut the race into a 15-lap stint and then 2 14-lap stints, no problem. You make it easy to the end with that. So Violet, if he can just finish this lap and then stay out 1 lap afterwards and then pit, he'll be good. He will have paid the piper, ran his worst laps already, and the race will just keep coming to him if we stay green flag to flag. Tempered Ship is falling back to 10th, and Maze finally pits here, lap 12, but right now, with NDL Violet already about to come into the oval section, Maze will go from fighting for the podium positions to going a lap down in a series that he has been ridiculously aggressive and strong in. But all the big GT3 named drivers have shown up to the Porsche Cup Series to play for tonight. Violet in the pits at the end of lap 14, paying 1 lap earlier, than we thought would be ideal. I look at Manuel Pedro, who is in second right now. He's got 60% wear on that left front, but if he stays out for another lap, he is still well positioned to make it a two-stop affair, but he is not. He is going to pit this time as well. So Violet pits this time, Manuel Pedro pits this time, and this will turn the lead back over to Dex Twilight. Les Railgun is pitting again. Why is Les Railgun pitting a second time so early? Has something gone wrong for Railgun? I don't see anything catastrophically wrong. It looks like he still has fuel and tires, but he is pitted, and there is the yellow flag. That may be the reason. The yellow flag is out. The pace car is rolling, so the yellow flag has fallen. This might, I don't know if they'll let Maze get a chance to get back on the lead lap, but Railgun pitted, but Twilight did not get a chance to pit, and Violet also went ahead and pitted. As the field now crunching together here. So we're going, and Railgun's gonna fall a little ways down the grid, but he's gonna have a bit of a tire advantage now. So, under our first yellow flag, just about 1/3 of the way through our race here at Sunset Peninsula Roval, we're gonna take a Twitch mandated ad break. We'll be back momentarily to see how the field is gonna shake up when pit road opens. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Sunset Peninsula. The field has really gotten shaken up now. NDL Violet and the green number 120 machine has ended up with the lead after pit road opened up here. So now, one second. So now we have a scenario where Violet leads. Breezy Rain is going to be in second position. He had pitted one lap earlier than Violet. Savage is going to move up into the third spot, but he's got some heavily worn tires because he ran the sops earlier and then already had made his first stops. Manuel Pedro now up in the fourth spot with moderately worn, well, slightly worn tires. Tempered Ship is now up into the fifth position with tires only have about 8% wear on them. And then is Les Railgun. The next half are three drivers who are running away with it. Railgun is going to be sixth. He's got a decent amount of wear on tires, 8%. And then behind him is going to be Wicked Ant 54. Ant has got tires with 28% wear. Here's another driver that started on the soft side, already pitted and changed tires. And then behind him is Dex Twilight here. Twilight had just pitted as the pit road opened, so his tires are going to be some of the freshest. He's still at 3.6% wear. Then you have Arrow 592 back here in the ninth spot right now. 4% wear on his tires. He has recently pitted. RXNN Dog, who's already had to pit for damage twice, he is running on some very badly worn out tires. I'm honestly shocked he didn't choose to pit already. Behind him is going to be Carr Matthews in the purple machine. Fresh tires because he elected to pit under this yellow flag. TCPP Photo has just recently caught the rear of the grid. He's got slightly worn tires, but I mean very slightly. Maze has gained a chance to close back in on the field, and that is Wicked Ant and RXNN Dog pitting again under another lap here under yellow as Maze and Homeminder both trying to rush around to catch the rear of the grid. Maze, if he knows what's good for him, he would pit this time by, but it seems like that is not in the cards for him. And then Homeminder back here, he doesn't really have an option to pit in this Oreo's Porsche. He's got engine damage, which is not going to help. But he's going to have to rush around quickly to try and catch the rear of the grid, because we should be going green at the start of lap 18 here. So we'll have about 25 laps to go when we go green once more here at the Sunset Peninsula Roval. And yeah, Homeminder, even though he has engine damage, is not going to pit this time, so he will go ahead and close back in. Of note, Maze actually ends up ahead of Wicked Ant and RX and Indog, so those two drivers, they're going to be able to close in a bit on strategy. They'll actually have slightly better tires than a lot of the other drivers here. But I wonder, how good is tires, and what is it better than track position? Because Violet, of our three dominant drivers thus far, Violet, Railgun, and Twilight, Violet leads. Railgun is 6th, Twilight is 7th, and Violet has tires that are in a good condition compared to them, and he's going to have clean air. Now, he will have Breezy right behind him, but we do not think that Breezy or Savage in 3rd will really be able to give Violet any headache. The other wild card might be Manuel Pedro. We don't really know what Pedro's real pace is going to be compared to our top 3. He spent most of the time before the yellow flag fighting with drivers for the upper midfield positions, because he was running an alternate strat and didn't have a great pit stop, not a great pit stop, a great qualifying lap, so he was buried way farther back in the grid. So now Pedro's going to be ahead of both Railgun and Twilight, so it'll be really interesting to see which of them end up better off. But now the entire field has closed in. Homeminder has finally caught the rear of the grid, even with a damaged car. Maze is going to be 11, so this yellow flag really helped him out. He is back on the lead lap, but the likelihood of him being able to lead a lap today is, I imagine, all but over. I think his streak of lean laps will come to a close today here at Sunset. Violet keeping the tires warm right behind your pace car Wiza4. And once again, we want to give a thanks to Wiza4 for doing pace car duties for tonight's event. As the field rolls single file out of the final banked corner, and we should start seeing them accelerate momentarily here. To the line will be Violet, Breezy, Savage, but keep an eye farther back on Railgun and Twilight. What will they do? As the green flag falls, we are back underway here at Sunset with about 25 laps to go. Firing down into turn 2. This is the first real braking zone. No big change in the top 3, but Violet's a little bit wide. I see movement there. That is Railgun already by Tempered Chip. And Dex Twilight's already by Arrow. So Railgun's making move, Twilight's making move here in the middle of the field. But it is Violet who leads. Big lunge there by Arrow on Twilight. But Twilight around the outside is able to get the power down nice and smooth, hold station. Railgun tucked up behind Manuel Pedro as they come into the infield drag strip section. No attempt down move here. And your leaders aren't really pulling away at the rate that we thought they'd be able to. Railgun still behind Manuel Pedro. Now they come into the infield back straightaway, and Railgun will go for the move. But look at this. Pedro's going to squeeze him down, throwing a bit of a defensive line into the braking zone side by side. And Pedro has to back out and give it to Railgun. So it does seem like Railgun is just legitimately that fast, and tires might actually be more important than track position. Already he's looking to the inside of Savage. That's Breezy Rain ahead, who comes down front of Railgun. But Railgun is side by side with Savage and will have just about completed the overtake as they come across the start-finish line. So Railgun already up into the 3rd spot. But Indy Elvira has opened a significant gap on the rest of the field already. Big lunge there by Manuel Pedro to get by Savage. So Pedro back into the 4th spot, but that slides him wide a bit. And now Savage in a position ends up having to back out, and he is under threat from Tempered Chip. Dex Twilight, though, back there in 7th is being harassed, and he is actually losing ground to Arrow now. Les Railgun's already gotten by Breezy Rain, and that's Manuel Pedro following suit, or trying to follow suit, but Breezy Rain on the outside is going to put a bit of a defense out, a bit of door-to-door contact. Breezy sliding the rear out. Pedro gets into the podium positions now. So how long will it take for Railgun to try and close the gap down on Violet? That is the new question. Pedro seems to be running about 1 second, 1.5 seconds out from Violet right now. Railgun already massively closing that gap down. We look at the tires, 23% wear on the tires for Railgun. I look at Violet's tires on the other hoof. He's only got 17% wear. Now, mind you, Violet pitted a little earlier, but I think Violet is on medium tires, and I think Railgun is on soft tires. Railgun is going for pure pace. Violet, I think, is still focusing on strategy right now, and they have completely left Manuel Pedro and the rest of the field behind. So it's just these two, and then everyone else. Interesting enough, Dex Twilight still stuck in the middle of the grid, has not been able to make moves forward as Manuel Pedro and Breezy Rain back at it, fighting very aggressively here for the last step on the podium right now. Big slide, that's Arrow, and Twilight Gate into it there. Arrow is wide, he is still wide. That's Tempered Chip who's gonna muscle him off the track as Chip steals the position there coming out of turn 3. So Arrow now slips back to 8th spot. Dex Twilight finally up into 6th, but unlike Railgun, Twilight is having a very rough time trying to make moves. Have we already had the change for the lead? Railgun to the inside, Violet on the outside as they come into the drag strip section. Both cars are a little bit sideways there, but the softer tires on Railgun's car let him regain grip almost instantly while Violet slides quite a bit longer. Violet on the inside, Railgun on the outside, but there's a lot more grip in the tires for Railgun. If he can keep it side by side coming into the back straightaway, he does, and that's gonna be enough. Railgun completes the overtake on Violet due to the power of softer tires. So softer tires do mean everything. Violet fakes a move to the inside, but is not willing to actually commit to it now. And now they come out of the infield section and back into the oval. Violet will have the draft on Railgun. Now help him stymie some of the time lost here. Manuel Pedro runs in 3rd position. Breezy Rain is 4th. Dex Twilight's now moved up into the 5th spot. Does Breezy have anything? There's another change for the lead. Violet gets to the inside of Railgun, sneaks by, gets him in turn 1. Side by side, but is that purple Porsche on the outside as they go into turn number 2. Violet goes deep, but then tries to cut with a really tight exit. That's not great for the traction, but it blocks the crossover lane from Railgun. Violet holds station over Railgun for now. They go back by the infield media center again, coming up into this not quite hairpin corner. Good opportune place for overtake, but Railgun not close enough to make it this time. Might not have to be. Violet's wide on the exit. Railgun looks to the inside, doesn't have the speed or the traction to get alongside. For the moment, Violet leads. Railgun looks to the inside again. Both Porsches slide the rear end down as they go through the infield drag strip section. Now through 3 consecutive right-hand corners followed by a quick left and then the infield back straightaway. Violet has it over Railgun, but you can tell that he's got the harder compound tires. He's just a little bit wide, missing the apexes, but Railgun is being compromised. He can't exactly stick it around the outside, make something work. No change. Violet still holds the position over Railgun as they come down to the end of the infield back straightaway, and behind them it is Twilight and Pedro side by side. Twilight has now muscled his way by Pedro. It took Twilight about 4 laps, but Twilight's finally gotten back into the podium positions where he feels he belongs. And that is the pace car out. The pace car is back out. We are under the yellow flag again. And Violet is going to pit, but Railgun is going to stay out. Twilight's going to stay out. Pedro will pit. Breezy will pit. Savage will pit. Chip will stay out. Maze will pit. Car Matthew is going to stay out. All of a sudden, the race has been turned onto its head for the second yellow flag of the day. And we believe it may have, whatever happened might have been between these two. TCPP Photo has heavy damage on the nose of his car, and Arrow 592 behind him has damage on all corners. Somehow the engine's not damaged, but everything on that car is heavily damaged, and Photo and Arrow limping their cars into the pit lane. A bunch of drivers pit, so now it is Railgun and Twilight 1st and 2nd, Tempered Chip 3rd, Car Matthew 4th, RX and Indog 5th, Wicked Ant will be in 6th position, 7th will be Homeminder, and then you get to Indiel Violet and Manuel Pedro will be the leaders of everyone who just pitted. Breezy Rain will be in 10th as well. We'll take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, we should be going to the green flag here at Sunset Peninsula Roval. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Sunset Peninsula. As you can see, about half the field elected to pit again, including some drivers who had just pitted. So Tempered Chip jumps in the pits, RX and N-Dog pits, Breezy pits, TCPP Photo pits, and Arrow 592, they all pit. As they all come out of the pit lane, it looks like it's going to be Tempered Chip who will have the advantage, so he will now be ahead of all these drivers who have pitted now with about 20 laps to go, so we are just a little bit past the race's halfway point. Frankly, at this point, if we go green to the end, you could go soft, no problem. I don't think the medium tires could last 20 or so laps, although you'd probably be looking at something closer to 19 laps. But I think soft tires, we know that they can go about 10 laps without too much issue. If you pitted already and throw on the soft tires, you can go until about lap 33 or so, 33, 34, somewhere around there, pit again for another set of softs and fly. Anyone who's on the medium tire is going to be a much rougher position. Les Railgun, his tires have 42% wear, but he elected not to pit thus far into this yellow. Dex Twilight, who runs in second position, had just gotten to second. He's at 39% wear right now. Third place is now Car Matthew, who had just gotten to the third position when the yellow came out. His tires only have 25% wear right now. Wicked Ant runs in the fourth position, sorry. He's at 39% tire wear and has a bit of engine damage. That's really not going to help him at the end of the lap. Homelander, who is now up in the fifth, still has that 5% engine damage, but he does not pit at all into this yellow and suddenly filtered his way up in the fifth. NDL Violet pitted under this yellow flag out of a top spot. His tires only have 6% wear. I think he's probably throwing on the soft tires and is just going to go bonsai and hope they can go soft to the checkered flag of this race here at Sunset if we stay green to the end. But we are going to have 20 laps to go when the leaders hit the line, and we anticipate that our pace car will pull off and will be Railgun versus Twilight at the head of the field. Violet is now the one with the track position disadvantage, but a massive tire life advantage. On the first restart, it seemed like the tires were the big advantage to have. Track position didn't help a lot. Is that going to hold true again? Wicked Ant is coming into the pit. Homelander is coming into the pits, and the pace car is not pulling off. So Wicked Ant and Homelander gain another free pit stop. Doesn't look like anyone else is, but Wicked Ant and Homelander gain another stop. So we're now going to be going green with what will be 19 laps to go this time by. And now all of a sudden, NDL Violet is going to move up into the fourth spot. And this will make it a little bit more possible if you want to pit just as the pace car pulls off. If you want to pit as the field comes to the green flag, you could maybe throw on medium tires by pitting right then and limp the mediums home if we stay green to the end. Again, 19 laps is still going to be a lot to ask for, but that might be in the cards all of a sudden. So we should be going green this time by. Through all this, it's Mays, who had that massive accident there in turn one earlier while fighting for second position. He went a lap down after that, but now he is back on the lead lap and has cycled his way up into the sixth spot. Chance of him at least leading the lap tonight is not over yet. It has been a very strange stat to follow, but it's been an interesting stat line that he has been pulling all season long since the Porsche Cup and GT3 Pro races started this season. This summer 2026 season, that is. The entire field's gathered back up again. Again, two yellow flags relatively close to each other means that everyone has been able to stay on the lead lap, but the strategies are all over the place. Wicked Ant and Homelander have just pitted now, and they're going to have a distinct tire advantage, although it looks like the Oreo Porsche may not have gotten the engine damage repaired. Wicked Ant is going to be 13th. He's also going to have nice fresh tires as well, so these two drivers could make some problems for the midfield, but I do not think they really have anything for the four drivers in our top four positions: Railgun, Twilight, Matthew, and Violet. And then Pedro there in fifth is someone else to keep an eye on as well. Those five have been really the big five drivers we're talking about in the GT3 Pro races. Normally don't see them here in the Porsche Cup races very often, but a bunch of the top GT3 drivers coming down to the Porsche Cup level to really make some hay here. As we're going through the banked oval section, speed oval turn 1 and oval turn 2. Now we see the pace car pulling off, so we'll be going green this time by. It will be Railgun leading Twilight with Matthews third, Violet fourth, Manuel, Pedro fifth. And Violet's going to have fresher tires against them all. Who's it going to be? How long is Railgun and Twilight going to be able to stay out here like this? Coming to the start-finish line, we'll be going green. What's the end of this going to look like? 19 to go. very delayed start by Railgun, and Twilight is right on top of him, and Violet's already pressuring Matthews. So Railgun trying to back up the field may have just put himself in a problem. Railgun's wide, and Twilight's to his inside already! Already side by side, and Twilight got him! Railgun choked the restart and choked it bad! And Twilight goes into the lead right away as if Railgun was just giving it to him! Matthew holds on to third, Pedro the fourth, Violet slips back to fifth now, but now Violet lunges to the inside! No, that is not Violet. That was Pedro who lunged to the inside and carves Matthew. And Pedro's up to third now ahead of Matthew. Now Violet trying to stay ahead of Maze. He'll just barely stay ahead of Maze. Closes back on Matthews, who will be fourth. But now Twilight and Railgun get a chance to try and streak away from the rest of the field here. Again, these two are on very worn tires. They want to open up as much of a gap as possible. Get some laps in clean air here before these tires completely fall off. And then I imagine that these two, when they pit, they're anticipating to throw on the medium tires and just run those mediums to the end right now. Violet should be in a position where he can go soft to the end. In theory, Violet should be faster, but if he spends more time fighting drivers for a position, it's not going to help. Violet, though, has already caught Manuel Pedro. Violet looking to the outside of Pedro, now falls back in line into the draft. Twilight and Railgun are already streaking away at the front. Railgun is pitting. Railgun is already pitting. Railgun only stayed out for one lap. He's already pitting as his tire's at 53% wear. So Railgun's going to pit very early on, and he is going to pit with about 18 laps to go. Yeah, 18 laps to go. So Railgun gonna try and make medium tires last 18 laps, and to his credit, he will be in completely clean air to the end of this race, more than likely on that strategy. Twilight, though, is gonna stay out here for a little bit longer. His tires are at 53% wear, and he has plenty more fuel. He can go for a little bit longer. His question is not going to be amount of fuel. It will be time. But Violet has now already worked his way into the second position. All right, so we know the fight for this win is going to be between Twilight, Violet, and Railgun. The question is going to be who is going to be where at the end, as once again this has turned into an interesting strategy affair, but the strategies have changed multiple times already due to yellow flags. If we get another yellow, that could change again. Big slide off into the dirt there by Twilight, and all of a sudden Violet closes the gap down. It's now less than 8/10, less than 7/10 as it comes to the infield back straightaway. It's down to just 6/10 of a second, and Violet is now going to be just close enough to get a bit of a draft off of Twilight here. Out of the infield back straightaway, and now this real quick left-right section before they get onto the banking on the oval section. Violet is now close enough to have the draft on Twilight. Twilight is immediately going to commit to a pit stop. He goes below the double yellow line, still full throttle below the double yellow line, as if he's having no grip issues whatsoever. No other driver has been able to do that all day long today. Twilight is now going to pit with 17 laps to go. So Twilight pits with 17 laps to go. Railgun pitted with 18 laps to go. In theory, I think Railgun will have the track position, but I don't think he's going to have the tires. And Violet, now in the lead, is going to be able to streak away. We believe he should have soft tires and should be able to go until about lap 32 or so. If he can go until about lap 32, he can probably pit again, throw on another set of soft tires, and be good to the end here. Again, we know the soft tires can last 10 laps. 11 laps might even be in the cards. It should not be too hard for Violet to make these tires last that long and just make his one more stop on the softs. Where is Twilight and Railgun going to be in relation to each other? Railgun coming up to speed, but Twilight's ahead of him. Twilight is actually ahead of Railgun after the pit stop sequence is over by the looks of it. So that is Twilight ahead of Railgun for the moment. But again, tire life, how is that going to turn out? Twilight has got brand new fresh tires and 38.8% in the fuel tank. Les Railgun, who is right behind him, has 25% in the fuel tank and 9% on the tires. I don't think Railgun has enough fuel to make it to the end. I could be wrong, but Railgun might have to make another splash late for fuel. We'll keep an eye on that story as it continues to develop, but maybe one of our top 3 drivers, a driver who seems like a sure lock for a podium result, may have bungled it on a strategy. We'll try to keep an eye on that as this race continues. But now, Indy Violet has streaked away from second place Manuel Pedro. Pedro runs in second right now. In his own Porsche, he's got 31% wear on his tires. He's not going to be able to stay out for a whole lot longer. And Maze is now up into the third spot. Only 30% wear on his tires. Doesn't have a lot of fuel, but he's doing a little bit better on tires than the 2 drivers ahead. Carr Matthews runs a little bit farther back here in the 4th position in that 6-7 purple Porsche. He's at 40% tire wear already. Plenty of fuel, but the tires are showing a little bit of beating there. That is Tempered Chip, who is stabilizing the 5th position right now. He's got 29% wear on his tires right now. And behind him is Breezy Rain, who has been fighting and punching with basically everyone in the entire field today. Breezy has definitely helped to make this an incredible show. We know that he has a real bad rivalry if you look at Swab. But with Swab not showing up today, it looks like Breezy has taken up Swab's manual and is trying his best to make this race interesting. He now tries to get alongside Tempered Chip as they go through the drag strip section. Not quite enough to do it that time by. Violet leads, Pedro second, Maze third. That is your top 3. The fight is for 4th on back. It is Car Matthew, Tempered Chip, Breezy Rain at the moment. Matthews runs about 5 seconds out of the leader. Here comes a move to the inside. That is Tempered Chip. Pulling up alongside, Chip completes the overtake, but slides wide as they come off of the end of the infield back straightaway. Still has a position though. Chip up into the 4th position. Car Matthew shoots wide as they come into the bank section. That leaves the inside open for Breezy Rain to go by. Breezy went right by Car Matthew. Breezy now up in the 5th position. He now has the draft on Tempered Chip as they come down the start finish straightaway this time by. All right, nose to tail for 4th position as they come across the start-finish line this time. Any chance of a move by Breezy Rain? That is the question. It is still nose to tail, neck and neck between those two, it seems. Look to the outside by Breezy Rain. Now look to the inside. Nothing big. Those 3 are all hold stationed just for the moment as they go through turn 2 and turn 3. Breezy Rain just a little bit wide coming out of turn number 3. And that's going to cause him to lose a bit of ground to Tempered Chip. So Tempered Chip opens up the gap just a bit on Breezy Rain. Car Matthew now losing a bit of ground behind them. Now that is Arrow 592, who got into it with Lesagura at the starting points of this race, has been making a lot of big dive bombs that haven't really gone anywhere, but he is now 7th in his position to give Car Matthew a bit of a headache here at the head of the field. Real quickly, I look at the lead group once again. NDL Violet leading. His tires are at 42% where he's got 11% left in the fuel tank right now. Manuel Pedro runs in the 2nd position. He has got 42% wear. He has 21% in the fuel tank right now. Maze runs in 3rd position. He is running Manuel Pedro down. He's only got 40% where he's got 21% in the fuel tank. Violet is going to have to pit much earlier than Pedro and Maze, and then when Pedro and Maze pit, they're likely going to end up being behind, if not way behind, the duo of Twilight and Railgun. Twilight and Railgun are still pretty much right on top of each other, but right now they're in a fight for 13th and 14th. They're hoping that they can just click off clean laps in relatively clean air and pick up a lot of positions as the drivers ahead all make their final stop. So again, we are not sure if Les Railgun can make his fuel last to the end. He's at only 18% left, and we have 14 laps left in the race. Twilight, I think, is also in a rough position with fuel, but his position is a little bit better. He's at 31%. If he can keep it down to about 2% wear a lap, he should be good. Violet leads another lap. Pedro continuing to hemorrhage time to Maze on circuit right now. Maze still closing in on Manuel Pedro. Gap is visibly shrinking between these two. Breezy Rain stabilized in 4th position after finally clearing Tempered Chip. Arrow has actually gotten by Car Matthews now. But Tempered Chip and Breezy Rain are still knife-fighting each other for 4th spot right now. They know that if Twilight and Railgun have botched their strategy and we stay green to the end, this could end up being a fight for the podium position. Maybe the last spot on the podium, but this could turn into a fight for the podium position. This is a legitimate, hardcore fight between these drivers right now, and with Arrow just a little bit farther back, it could very easily turn into a menage a trois if Breezy Rain can't stay ahead of Tempered Chip. But right now, Breezy Rain is slowly opening the gap on Tempered Chip as it comes to the end of the infield back straightaway once again. Through the left-right complex once more. A bit of a slide, but the 4 is going to hold station over the 91. Now back into the banking of Speedway Turn 2 and then Speedway Turn 1. Breezy Rain still runs forward. Tempered Chip still runs in the 5th position. No real change between them as Tempered Chip not close enough to do anything to Breezy yet. The draft is there. It's strong enough to creep his green Porsche close to the silver and orange Porsche Breezy, but not close enough for him to make a move as they go down the front straightaway. Not close enough to make a move as they go into turn number 1. Maybe he'll be close enough to make a dive bomb going into turn number 2, but he ends up braking earlier than Breezy. Breezy hits the curb, slides wide. Breezy does. Ends up getting on the track right in front of Tempered Chip, then slides wide again out of turn number 3. Tempered Chip to the outside as they go to the chicane. A little bit of contact. Breezy backs way out of it as they go by the infield media center. Tempered Chip gets by Breezy Rain for 4th spot on the the track. And while that happened, Aero 592 got a chance to close in on that duo just a little bit. But now it is Tip or Chip who is ahead of Breezy Rain. Tip or Chip into the 4th position now. Real quick, let's go ahead and look at the penalties again. And we say this every time in this series, in the X League, you do not get penalties removed under any circumstances. Right now, the driver with the most time penalties is Maze, who's in 3rd position, but it's only 1.6 seconds of time penalty. Run Dog in 10th has 1.5 seconds of time penalty. Arrow in 6th is 1.3 right now. Other 3 drivers who are going to likely be fighting for the win, we believe, is Violet, Twilight, and Railgun. Railgun and Violet, no time penalties. Twilight, 0.6 seconds of penalty right now. Temper Chip and Breezy Rain continue to lose ground to Violet. But the interesting thing is going to be Pedro and Maze. Maze continuing to run down Pedro at this stage of the event. Maze seems to be doing a little bit better managing his tires. It's about 11 laps to go as leader has now crossed the line. So if Violet pits at the end of this lap, he should be good on fuel and tires to the checkered flag. He's at 58% wear, but he's only got a little less than 3% in the fuel tank. It's going to be rough. I think he'll have the fuel to make it to the end, but it's going to be rough for him to make it to the end. Manuel Pedro, though, runs in 2nd position, and Maze runs in 3rd. Pedro, 59% on both of the left side tires. He's down to 13% fuel. Maze runs in 3rd position. He is down to 57% on his most worn tires, 13% fuel as well. Pedro really struggling to keep those tires under him right now, and Maze is continuing to eat into him. But Pedro had a really big gap. He has plenty of ground to lose to Maze. But how's this going to turn out near the end? Violet is really streaked away from Pedro and Maze, partially due to the fact that Pedro's dropped tires in the dirt, and those 3 right-handers, Pedro drops tires in the dirt. He's still sliding, still struggling to get traction. They come into the infield back straightaway once again. Maze now close enough to have a draft on Pedro as they go through the infield back straightaway, and now through this big left-right chicane. We believe that Violet will be pitting this time by. We don't know about Pedro or Maze. Are they going to pit this time, or are they both going to try and stay out 1 lap longer? Pedro's going to be a little wide. Maze going to hold a nice tighter line. Maze still close enough to get a draft on Pedro as they go down through Speedway, turn 1, and now down the front straightaway again. Violet is in the pits. We'll be curious to see where Violet ends up in relation to Twilight and Railgun. Come across the start-finish line. Maze not close enough to do anything to Pedro this time by, but he is still closing. Maze trying to recover from a big accident earlier to take the lead here late at sunset. Likely not going to be a fight for the win, but it would still be a lead late. A heck of a recovery drive if he can make it stick. But Manuel Pedro is not done. Pedro has been one of the most impressive drivers in the GT3 series this season thus far. He's really trying to show his stuff here in the Porsche Cup series, but the same weaknesses we saw with him in that Ferrari in the GT3 Cup, which is massive problem with tire wear, seems to be striking him here in the Porsche Cup as well. All of a sudden, Maze is right behind Pedro as they come onto the infield drag strip section again. Both cars slide wide, but Pedro hits the outside wall. Pedro hits the outside wall. Maze looks to the outside, but then backs out of it just before they get into the triple right-hander again. This is where Pedro went off last time. He goes wide again. He doesn't go as wide to the dirt, but the inside line's open. Maze has the inside line for 3 consecutive corners. The switchback benefits Pedro just a bit, but Maze has the nose ahead. Drag race for a lead between the 2 of them as they go down the infield back straightaway. And now they come up into this left-right chicane. Pedro dives deep, but slides. Boy, does he slide! Maze tries to back out of it, trying to give himself a good draft. Pedro and Maze make big contact. Pedro is sideways and slow, coming into the bank section. Nearly runs into the safer barriers on the outside, and Maze goes into the lead. Pedro is going to be second. Temper Chip's paying this time. Breezy Rain's paying this time. Arrow is paying this time. By weird technicality, we might see Maze lead a lap here in pit lane. There's one car that is very slow. That is TCPP Photo, really slow. And that is Run Dog trying to come by. Is Run Dog? Yes, Run Dog will lead. So no, Maze does not lead the lap. So Run Dog now goes in the lead. With about 10 laps to go here, he still has some life in his tires, but he will have to pit again sooner rather than later anyway. And Les Railgun has ended up in 2nd position now. But we don't know if his fuel... Whoa, that makes it pretty cool. 52% wear on the tires, 5.3 in the fuel tank. He is going to have to pit again. And Violet's only about 2.3 seconds behind him right now. Violet has 36% fuel, relatively fresh tires. So Railgun's going to have to pit again. Violet's going to take the spot back. Maze has ended up ahead of Manuel Pedro after their pit stops have ended here. As our ticker continues to just completely melt down. Run Dog leads on a wildly alternate strategy right now. but Mays leads Manuel Pedro. Then behind them is Tempered Chip, who has opened the gap on Breezy Rain now, and he in turn has opened the gap on Arrow. Farther back is Wicked Ant in 9th. 10th position is Car Matthew, although they may have just swapped position. Yeah, it does look like they have swapped position just now. When Rundog pits, he's likely going to fall out of the top 10, I imagine, but he will have fantastic tires to the end. He will not have to worry about any tire fall up to the checkered flag. Les Railgun runs in 2nd position, but the frustration has got to be incredibly poignant because he is going to have to pit this time by. His tires, his fuel are not going to make it another lap. He pits this time by with about 8 laps to go as leaders come across the line. 9 laps to go, actually, when the leaders come across the line. Rundog is going to stay out for another lap. NDL Violet now moves into the 2nd position. If we stay green to the end, there is no doubt in our minds that NDL Violet's going to pull off the win tonight here in that green and yellow Porsche. The question, I think, is going to be who in the devil is going to be fighting for 2nd position. Is Mays and Pedro fighting for what looks like will be 2nd right now? Mays holds the line. Pedro tries to go wide, can't make it stick there. Mays gets really aggressive on the curbs going into turn number 2, but he's going to be able to keep his car ahead of Manuel Pedro for now. And these two are going to be even on tires going forward. But in the last run, Mays seemed to have Pedro's number when it came to managing the tires to the end here. So we're starting to wonder if maybe the Ferrari's issues in the GT3 series is not a Ferrari issue. It may be more of a driver issue because Pedro is having a lot of the same issues now that he was having in those Ferraris in the GT3 event. So a very interesting thing to consider going forward there. Pedro a little bit wide as they come into the infield drag strip section. He is still close enough to draft Mays at the moment. Rundog continues to lead on an alternate strategy. He is not on track for back-to-back podiums in the Porsche Cup events, but he is up front, leading plenty of laps. Yes, it is off strategy, but he's gotten his name up in front, gotten some airtime, gotten some stream time on the broadcast. Great job on Rundog's part, and it looks like he's going to stay out for another lap. He is really stretching this out. I almost wonder if he is hoping for a late race yellow to save him or something. That is the only thing I think that can really make sense for Rundog right now, because we have about 7 laps left. He's already at 54.9% tire wear. Even if he was on hard compound tires, it's not like those tires would comfortably last to the end anyway. But he's hoping for a late race yellow to give him a free pit stop and cycle him to the rear of the grid on nice fresh rubber, fresher than what everyone else would have right now. NDL Violet runs comfortably in 2nd position. He knows that the race win is going to fall in his lap once Rundog pits. There is no pressure behind, no pressure in front. He just needs to keep an eye on the tires and not let them completely fall off here. Mays continues to hold on to 3rd spot, but just barely over Manuel Pedro. They have pulled away from the rest of the field. In fact, most of the rest of the field have all really spread out. Twilight and Railgun both have made another pit stop by the looks of it. Twilight in 12th, just barely ahead of Les Railgun. Now again, these two drivers now should have fantastic tires to the end of the race, but they're going to have a massive disadvantage when it comes. Wait, does Twilight not have enough fuel? He is at 12.8% fuel right now, and we still have about 7 laps left. I don't see a way that Twilight's able to make that fuel tank last to the end. Has Twilight bungled the strategy again? Well, Les Railgun runs back here in 13th position in that purple and gold number 67 machine. He has plenty of fuel to make it to the end. Nice fresh tires, but he has a lot of gap between himself and the cars ahead. Photo now going to try and keep Dex Twilight behind for 11th spot. Rundog finally pitting out of the lead. So NDL Violet will go into the lead here late at Sunset Peninsula. He has been running the alternate strategy all day long, even under the yellow flags. When the yellow flags come off, he has been the one to immediately throw away his strategy and jump onto another one. Well, it seems to have worked out by being so aggressive on his reactivity to the changes in the race conditions. NDL Violet has put himself and kept himself on top when it matters most. We have less than 10 laps left, side by side between Mays and Manuel Pedro. The fight for the bottom 2 steps on the podium just will not die. Mays still holding station over Pedro right now. And while these two are fighting, they are still pulling away from Tempered Chip, interestingly enough. That is the part that really impresses me. They are way behind Violet, and while Violet will have some tire fall off a little earlier than these two, I don't think it will be enough for this duo to catch Violet at the end when Violet's tires really fall off the cliff here. Rundog's actually ended up ahead of Dex Twilight when it's all said and done with. So of the 3 dominant drivers, Twilight, Railgun, and Violet, it's possible that 2 of them are not even going to be fighting for a top 5, let alone a podium or the win. So a massive disaster class here by Twilight and Railgun by the looks of it. Maze and Manuel Pedro continue to go back and forth. Maze holds station. Pedro tries to follow suit, but slides off circuit just a bit. He still has enough to catch the draft in the infield back straightaway. He'll have enough to catch the draft again as they go into the banked corners. That is Tempered Ship back there in fourth now, trying to run the gap down. He might be close enough to catch the draft, but I don't think he'll be able to do anything. Pedro has a fantastic run on Maze as they come out of the final corner. Looks to the outside. Maze is going to defend the inside. Pedro is going to go to the inside. Now he goes to the outside at the last possible moment. Across the line, Maze still has the car ahead. He drifts high ahead of Pedro. Pedro is going to try and take a tighter line in turn one. No big attempts at a move by either of them. Going into turn two, the first heavy braking zone on the circuit. But Maze got into the curves and slides wide. Not only does Maze slide wide, he lets Pedro by. He lets Tempered Ship by. Maze goes away and podium positions here with just about 6 laps to go at Sunset Peninsula Road Course. Manuel Pedro now up in the second spot, but he has Tempered Ship, not someone you usually hear the name of in the GT3 Pro Race. He doesn't even run the GT3 Pro Races very often, but Tempered Ship is suddenly here in third position, showing that, hey, the Porsche Cup drivers are here. They are legitimately people to talk about, and he is now the one putting pressure on Manuel Pedro as they go through 3 consecutive right-hand corners, followed by a quick left-hand flick, and then onto the infield back straightaway again. NDL Violet is now an entire straightaway ahead of this group. There is no shot that Violet loses this race as long as he doesn't make a catastrophic mistake or doesn't have a disconnect. This is a fight for a second and third on the podium, and boy, what a fight it is. Pedro gets into it for a Tempered Ship from behind. They're both sideways as they come into the banking. The number 91 green and black Porsche is a little bit more sideways than Pedro, but he's still close enough to have the draft on Pedro as they go through the final bank corner. As the banking drops off, and now they come onto the front straightaway again. Pedro going very low, defending right against the inside wall. Tempered Ship is going to follow suit, and now Tempered Ship goes wide. Pedro starts to go wide at the last possible moment. Neither of them are really set up very well for turn one, but around the inside is Tempered Ship. He gets the nose of the car ahead going into turn two, but breaks early, and now Pedro slides wide. Tempered Ship gets to his inside, and Pedro made the mistake that Maze made a lap earlier, but Tempered Ship is not able to get alongside. Ship could not make the overtake on Pedro that time by. Pedro holds on to second. Tempered Ship right behind for third. They go by the media center. Now into this not quite hairpin section once again. Maze is right back there in fourth position, ready to make something of it all over again as they go into this real quick switchback here. It's a full throttle switchback where the cars bounce over the curbs as just before they get into the infield drag strip section. Pedro still holds it over Tempered Ship for the moment. Now into the 3 right-handers once again. Again, Pedro is wide, but he's not the widest one. That's Maze. Maze was wide enough. He dropped tires in the dirt. Lost time to the drivers ahead, and that is Breezy rated 5th, closing in on Maze, but Tempered Ship is still close enough to have a draft on Manuel Pedro. At the end of the infield back straightaway, no attempt on a move by Tempered Ship this time by, but both cars are sideways, and Pedro was really sideways going over the curb. He went wide, Ship lunged to the inside, couldn't make it stick, and neither of them have a good time coming into the bank corners. Now they go through Speedway turn 2, followed by Speedway turn 1. Maze is close enough to have a draft on both of them. Pedro has second, Tempered Ship has a draft on him. Maze has a draft on both of them. This time Pedro's going to commit to the outside line. And that is Tempered Ship who's going to follow suit. He's closing in. There's only about a third of a car length. Now no car length. He looks to the inside through turn number 1. Falls back in line. Now looks back to the inside turn 2. But has to back out at the last moment. And by backing out, that gives Maze an inkling of a hope. Maze lunged in, but the door closed before he could make anything of it. Now nose to tail between Pedro, Ship, and Maze once again as they come through this little switchback here. That's full throttle straight line. Then by the media center once again. Manuel Pedro still holding it. Tempered Ship still in second. Manuel Pedro still in second. Tempered Ship in third. Maze is fourth. And that Ship goes off. Ship goes into the dirt there, coming out of the infield hairpin. Now he falls out of the podium positions. Maze goes back into the third spot, and all of a sudden Breezy Rain in fifth spot is close enough to do something to Tempered Ship. All of a sudden Ship is still there behind Maze though. All 3, Pedro, Maze, and Ship, all drop tires into the dirt in the section of 3 consecutive right-handers. The 91 is right behind Maze as they go down the infield back straightaway. Wicked Ant and Rundog are both in the pits. We think they may have needed to make emergency pit stops, so that will likely catch one, if not both of them, a lap down late here. It'll be 3 laps to go when the leader, NDL Violet, hits the start-finish line this time by. But the focus is not on the lead for the race. The focus is on second and third on the podium, as this is turning out to be a wild fight. But it looks like Manuel Pedro has opened the gap on Mays and Tempered Chip just a little bit. Mays has got about a second and a half he has to make up on Pedro, and he still has Tempered Chip behind him. Nose to tail between Mays and Tempered Chip as they go through turn 1. Now into turn number 2. Is there any attempt to move? No one attempts to move. Breezy Rain is there in 5th, right behind. The fight for the final step on the podium still alive. Big side by Manuel Pedro for second. Up ahead there, and all of a sudden, we see Tempered Chip wise. Breezy Rain tries to make something happen, can't make it stick, and that may have been perfect for Mays. The driver ahead and the driver behind both made the same kind of mistake coming out of turn number 3. All of a sudden, Mays opens a bit of a gap on Tempered Chip and closes the gap on Manuel Pedro just a little bit here. When the leader hits the start-finish line this time by, it will be 2 laps to go. Right now, everyone is still on the lead lap. Run Dog, though, is only a few seconds ahead of NDL Violet at the moment. Manuel Pedro still second. Mays is third, but now the gap is closing, and now Tempered Chip really drops tires into the dirt there. In the 3 consecutive right-handers. To the inside comes Breezy Rain, and they're going to be side by side as they come into the infield back straightaway. Breezy has the nose ahead. Breezy has the car about 2/3 ahead. Now completely ahead. Breezy Rain steals 4th from Tempered Chip. Guesses that you get to the end of the infield back straightaway that time by. But now we look at Mays and Pedro as we see Breezy Rain and Tempered Chip slide wide farther back there. Is Mays close enough to get a draft on Pedro down the front straightaway this time by? It is not the case. Pedro still far enough ahead of Mays that there is no draft, and Mays is actually getting a big draft behind to the duo of Breezy Rain and Tempered Chip. Across the start-finish line, Mays has Breezy right behind him, but Breezy is wide in turn number 1, and Chip is even wider behind them. No attempt to move by these 3 drivers this time by. Mays gonna hold station ahead of Breezy Rain, but Manuel Pedro didn't make a big mistake that time by. That gap has opened up again in Pedro's favor. Mays may have topped out in 3rd position here. Manuel Pedro, though, we saw last time by, he had a little bit rougher time keeping the tires under him in the last run, and we're thinking the same thing's starting to happen this time as well. 53% wear on the tires for him. I look at Mays, who runs in 3rd position. He is at 54% wear. Ooh. Am I looking at that right? Pedro? No, Pedro's at 56% wear on the tires. So it's only going to keep getting worse for Pedro. Mays doesn't have a massive advantage, but he does have an advantage. And Cars Matthew drops out. He was running the top 6 position and drops out with less than 2 laps to go. Frustrating for him, but that will move Dex Twilight up into the 10th spot. Les Railgun has also climbed his way up into the 8th spot in the midst of all this as well. Also, Run Dog has gone a lap down at this stage of the race. White flag is in the air this time by Pedro. Just not far enough away from Mays. So Mays is going to have the draft on Pedro as they go down the start-finish straightaway this time by. But I don't think Mays is going to be close enough to do anything to Pedro. Tempered Chip has lost touch with these drivers. I think everything has fallen off. Violet leads over this group by 12 seconds. My God. Into turn 2 and 3 for a final time. Pedro is wide. Mays lunges, closes the gap, but is not able to get alongside. Breezy Rain continues to follow suit in 4th position. And again, we look at the time penalties. Mays, 2.2 seconds, but Pedro and Breezy Rain both have 0.8 seconds even. So Mays needs to not just get by Pedro, but have Pedro and Breezy Rain have some sort of catastrophic tire failure or something at the end in order to make anything out of it. That is Run Dog ahead, lap traffic that this trio is coming up on as they come into the infield drag strip section for a final time. It does not look like Mays has anything for Pedro. He has caught him, but time's up, over, plow. There's only about 30 to 40% of this lap left as they come out of those 3 consecutive right-handers, which has historically been Pedro's weakest section. Mays is close enough to get the draft on Pedro, but even if Mays nips Pedro at the line, the time penalties will go back into Pedro's favor. NDL Violet is going to come down to a fantastic win off the back of strategy. We know that. Our focus is on 2nd position. What's going to happen here? Because Breezy Rain and Pedro are even on time penalties. If Pedro gets into it, Breezy might still be able to nip him through the final corners. A big draft here for Mays, a big draft for Breezy Rain. Pedro is going to defend the inside line. Mays says, okay, I'll go to the outside. Pulls alongside, neck and neck, at the line. Who's got the nose ahead? Mays has his nose ahead, but it won't matter because on time penalties, Manuel Pedro holds on to 2nd. Breezy Rain will steal 3rd. Mays will be 4th. Tempered Chip will be 5th. Arrow will be in 6th position. And that car crashes right after a start-finish line. 7th will be Savage. who also runs wide, but he'll keep it on track. Les Railgun will be scored as 8th. TCPP Photo will come down in the 9th position by the looks of it. And Dex Twilight, I think, had to make an emergency stop, but will still come home in 10th position at the end of this. Homeminder will be 11th, 12th will be Wicked Ant, and Rundog will be last of our riders in 13th. Car Matthew will be scored as 14th after disconnecting with about a lap and a half left, and Les Aguera, who left before he even got 10 laps in, will be last, 15th in this field. And that will wrap up our race here. We're going to take a Twitch mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to get some interviews with some of our top finishers here at Sunset. All right. Can you hear me now?
Hello.
Yep.
All right, finally. All right, thank goodness. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sunset Peninsula Roval for the Porsche Cup, our race is over, but we do want to go ahead and talk with some of our top finishers. I want to start with our 4th place finisher, Maze. Maze, go ahead and include your audio if you can. What an interesting race. You finally qualify for one of these Porsche Cup races, and yet you don't lead any laps. Your streak is over. You crash, you go a lap down, and by the end of it, you're still fighting for the podium at the checkered. What in the devil was that? That was a very schizophrenic race, it seemed.
Yeah, it was pretty eventful. I would have got second if I didn't have some questionable penalties, but it is what it is, you know. We all sign up to a race with the penalties on, and it is what it is to take that on the chin. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of got murdered. T1. I don't think he meant to, but it ruined my race, and then I ended up. Luckily, I can call the safety car. I ended up waiting like half a lap, and nobody called it, so I ended up being able to call it. But that lost me a lot of time, and kind of chewed up my tires trying to get my lap back after I finally made it to the pits under safety. And I guess I got lucky with the other safety cars that popped up afterwards. Kind of had to make do with that, but that really helped. And yeah, I was able to throw on softs for the last 2 stints. And I mean, I guess considering everything, I'm pretty happy with where I ended up.
Yeah, 4th place, side by side the line. Now that the race lengths between the Porsche Cup events and the GT3 Pro races have changed, do you think there's still any data that you can take from these from these Porsche Cup races that will apply to the GT races?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can take, you can get something out of it, because I guess the tire wear isn't exactly identical between the series, but it's close. It's close enough to be like, okay, I need to do something similar that I did yesterday. I at least, you know, I write down all my stuff on a sheet of paper, and I can look back and, you know, okay, well, this lasts this long on these tires, and then, you know, and just make little adjustments instead of having to do it all over again. So, I mean, you do get something, but it's not exactly like just a straight shot, and I think that's beneficial for the league. So, yeah, it does benefit, but not exactly a huge benefit, but it's something.
All right, anything else you want to say before we let you go for the night, Maze?
Love you.
Okay, well, that was unexpected. I want to go ahead and talk with our 3rd place finisher, Breezy Rain. Breezy, well, it's not a win. You really showed that the Porsche Cup drivers do legitimately belong in the top positions in the Porsche Cup races, regardless of who shows up. Fantastic run, fighting at the pointy end of the field pretty much all day to come home 3rd. What do you have to say about your run out there today, Breezy?
Is sloppy. Just making mistakes every other lap. And that race start was questionable from everybody. A lot of bumping and just, you know. All I got.
Nothing else. I mean, granted, I guess Suave's not here, so you can't exactly dunk on him like I know you like to. But still, it was a pretty solid top 3 run. Well, I mean, if you have nothing else to say, I mean, do I at least want to try and cut a wrestling-style promo or something?
No.
All right, well, that's the word from Breezy Rain, feeling very reserved as if he's Kimi Räikkönen or something here, but still a very powerful and well-earned podium result for Breezy. You can definitely go home and sleep this one off with a smile. That was a pretty solid run. And now I want to talk with our race winner, NDL Violet. Violet, make sure your audio is included. The in stats will say, Violet, that you won this race from the pole, but this race was anything but a simple walk-off. You were constantly off strategy compared to everyone else, and you kept ending up at the front and kept ending up at the front. How in the world were you able to make the right strategy call so many times in this chaotic race?
Well, it all kind of starts with qualifying. This layout of this track is, well, I think the easiest way to say it is questionable. So I knew that being near the front would be a very, very advantageous thing, so I thought, definitely going to qualify this week. ended up being a good idea because I think Twilight messed his lap up or something, going off of the time differences from qualifying practice. He was like 2-3 tenths faster than me in practice, and then, you know, a tenth back in qualifying, so I'm assuming there was some issue there on his end. Ended up being pole, and on the formation lap I realised pretty quickly that I was the only one in the top 3 that was on softs. Or on medium, sorry. So I decided, I was originally planning on trying to go really, really long and do 2 mediums and a soft. I was going to be on like 65-70% wear doing that strat, but yeah, decided against that on the formation lap. Absolutely melted my tyres to get any kind of tyre pressure in, because I saw that Twilight behind me wasn't doing any of it. So I thought, if I have a lot more tyre pressure, I'm going to have a very similar amount of grip through the first like 4 or 5 turns. Ended up being life-saving, because he almost killed me at turn 2, or turn 3. The first actual braking zone after the
turn 2,
first
turn
turn.
3. I call it a
Yeah.
turn 2, turn 3 myself. I feel like it's a not quite a hairpin. I feel like it's 2 distinctly separate corners with different
Yeah.
exits. So I call it 2 and 3, but I don't know what the official layout would be.
Yeah, so being on mediums allowed me to be off of the strategy. I knew that if I could keep Twilight behind for... Twilight's a very respectful driver, so I thought if I can keep him behind for a couple of laps, kind of abuse the fact that he's a bit respectful, that it would work in my favour over the course of the race, and then kind of just prayed for a safety. I knew that I would eventually like come back a little bit later in the race, but I wasn't making up the time difference from the quad soft. I think it would have been very close at the end if I'd done my original plan and strat, but because I would have been really slow at the end of my medium laps, so the quad soft would have been a lot closer than it looked like it was going to be. Yeah, the safety was very good for me. I took advantage of it, as did Manuel, who, as soon as the safety call thing came out, was screaming pit soft in
Wait,
very,
I have
very
to ask,
Brazilian.
was Pedro screaming in English or Portuguese?
Mostly English. The keyword is mostly.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, go on.
Yeah, and then I was, I think, one of maybe 4 drivers tops that that managed to take advantage of the 10, or sorry, the 11, 12 soft push. I think compared to the medium, it would be about the same on the 12, but I thought I'd rather, in case I have to try and pass Twilight and they've gone mediums or something for the final strat, I'd rather have the extra. I'd rather have the 2 laps at 65% at the end on the soft than take the medium. But yeah, good race. It honestly, races like that in this series to me are much more important than the pro. Honestly, with how the BOP has been over the season, it's good for sure. It's definitely a very good BOP, but given how my championship is going, the Kyalami game crash on the grid, the bad internet disconnect from the race before that, whatever it was, don't really care about pro. I'm just vibing in here, and I don't know what Maze was saying about writing down strategy stuff, but I don't do that. I was freeballing. I was having a lot of fun. Just messing about with the tyres. But yeah, it worked. Good race.
Yeah, it did work. I'll also go ahead and say, interesting little stat, according to the game, you finished the race in 1 hour, 11 minutes, 11 seconds. So not only did you start first and finish first, you also finished the race 1-1-1-1. So
did I have
a
the
lot of
fastest
numbers
lap?
coming your way tonight.
I did not have the fastest lap. Twilight beat me by 8,000th. God damn it. He was much faster on the soft though. That lap that he got is definitely not when the rubber would have been good. He was quite consistently faster than me.
Yeah.
I don't think it was just the tyres. Race pace, race pace wise, he would have absolutely trounced me, but he got the strategy wrong, and then shit happens. That's the game. I took advantage, he didn't.
It was fantastic to see you out here tonight. Will you show up for tomorrow's GT3 race?
If I can. I'm quite busy at the moment, but yeah, if I can, I will be. I don't trust I'll get anywhere near as good as a result, because I'm not as good in normal GT3 as I am in anything spec like this, but hopefully there's some carryover in the strategy, because as per usual, I won't be doing any of it before the race. I'll just be freeballing. And
Well, I did
we'll
bring
see how
that
these
question
go.
up to Maze, and I'll bring the same question up to you. The Porsche Cup races have been shortened slightly, and the GT3 races have been lengthened slightly. So there's now about a 5-lap difference in race length between the two of them. And obviously the tire wear rate is different between the two series, and the general way the cars handle and burn through their tires and fuel is different between the two series. So how much data do you think actually is going to cross over at this point?
I approve of the Porsche races being shortened, for sure. And based off of car choice alone, I disagree with the lengthening of Pro. Because Ferrari tyre wear bad. But yeah, I'm happy with how the races have been structured recently, and if they're gonna, I like the change for sure. I think we'll feel how things go out, but I've definitely noticed it sometimes in the pro races they're just a bit long. Like Kyle Army last season felt like it took forever because it's one of the slower tracks on the game, and it was quite the slog to get through. But yeah, with the slightly lengthened race length coming after tracks like this and tracks like Kyle Army, well, I suppose this is the first race for it on this season, but I don't know why this track's here. I don't agree with this. I don't like this. I don't
You're
like
not
this
the
track
only
at all.
one. There's only probably been about 4 people I know over the entirety of Forza Motorsport who actually like racing league events here on Sunset Roval. A lot of people seem to like the idea of the track, but it seems like a lot of people just disagree with the circuit in most series. I've seen it done in NASCAR, I've seen it done in IndyCar, I've seen it done in now GT3 and Porsche Cup. Well, I've seen GT3 about a year ago. Very few people seem to actually like racing the circuit in league conditions, even though a lot of people think it is a decent circuit. So, yeah, it definitely seems to be one of those kinds of tracks.
I think the short reverse is pretty lit, but apart from that, I don't really. I think it's really, really good hot lap track, but that's where my limit for it goes. I don't have much tolerance for bad remakes of tracks that weren't exactly that good in the first place.
I played
think-
Forza Motorsport 1, and I liked the layout in Forza Motorsport 1, but also Forza Motorsport 1 was really fucking jank. So this is a
Oh.
significant improvement for me, because I went Forza 1, a little bit of Forza 3, then jumped to Motorsport 6. So my really only comparison is Motorsport 1, and this is still a massive improvement over Motorsport 1.
Well, here we are 20 years later. Is Forza Motorsport any less jank? That's the question.
Significantly, significantly
I don't
less
know, I
jank.
disagree. No, I disagree. I think the handling was more consistent back then. On the 360 titles, there was definitely jank.
Well,
but
I'm
it was
talking OG
more
Xbox,
consistent.
Forza Motorsport 1 OG Xbox. So,
Oh god. Yeah,
because
you
again,
get out of here
I
with that.
missed basically the entirety of the 360 era. I played a little
Nah.
bit of Motorsport 3. I enjoyed Motorsport 3, don't get me wrong, but I did not really get into it deep enough to really appreciate a lot of the stuff. Missed Motorsport 2, missed Motorsport 4, missed Motorsport 5, and then jumped in on Motorsport 6. So, for me, Motorsport 1 is the comparison. So,
Nah, I would, this game is just FM7 with less cars. Let's go back to FM7. Let's
oh
do it.
god, no.
Let's all
Motorsport
return.
7 is so much worse. Motorsport 7 took...
No.
Guess, for example,
Let's
I had to get on
return.
Motorsport 7 about a month ago to look at some old data. It took a solid 5 minutes for Motorsport 7 to load. Every single time I tried to pull up a car, the game had to reload every single car in the garage before it actually let me pull a car up and look at a car. It was the same problem when I tried to load onto the track for a race. It had to load every single car in my garage before I could actually, select a car to race with. So many awful choices. And, oh my god, the AI. I'm not saying the AI of this is perfect, but Motorsport 7 AI was just incredibly stupid. But it had it didn't even bother with rubber banding like the Horizon games does. Motorsport 7's AI was literally just, you want higher difficulty? We just cheat extra power into the AI cars. It was so utterly bloody fucking absurd. There are so many things I hate about Motorsport 7.
But I'd rather the AI cheat than be slow. Even on 8 difficulty on here, you can walk them. You can be a horrendous player and walk the AI on this game without tunes, without upgrades. It doesn't take any form of skill to absolutely trounce AI on this game on a solid 70% of the circuits, and it has less cars. Like, I just want more cars because there's not enough here. Give me my Formula Ford back. Formula Ford 2.3. The OG NASCARs, the old Indy cars, the earlier GT3s, C6R, give me that, and then we're in Happy Land. I don't care. But give me that. I don't want to lose it. Why lose it?
I don't know. I can't get into it. There are so many issues I had with Motorsport 7. By the end of Motorsport 7, I was just like, anything would be an. To be fair, I might be biased. Motorsport 8 is basically everything, or almost everything I want out of a racing game. I'm actually happy with the car list. I would rather just have a few more tracks myself. But
I'd rather them put the stuff that's in the game files in the game first, because there's a lot there.
Yeah, but then you get into the bigger issue that Microsoft sees no value in this because Horizon and open world casual slot makes more appeal for. It's easier to monetize that than it is proper racing stuff. And that leads to a bigger problem.
Before we get into the bane of our existence, which is the very topic of Microsoft, I think it might be time for me to get out of here.
That's actually a good point. We are still broadcasting live, I guess, and it probably would be better for me to wind this on down. But in either case, Violet, great job out there winning from the pole in a very strategy-focused event. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you tomorrow, and if not then, maybe seeing you next week.
Yeah, happy to be here. Glad we agree politically. Very important.
All right, peace out.
Have a good one, man.
All right, and that is a word from NDL Violet. Apologize for a little bit of the rambling and chatting there, but that will pretty much wrap up our broadcast here from Sunset Peninsula Roval. But don't you worry, tomorrow night we'll have another Sunset Peninsula Roval race. That will be with the GT3 cars. Will anything stop the ridiculous streak of maximum points at the head of the field in that series? Well, we'll find out in about 22 hours' time. But until next time, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Layer 13. Thank you very much for joining us. Farewell and goodbye, everyone.